That's a thumbs up, and it's Ian Blake in pole position ahead of Steve Brown on the front row. Joe Holmes, the winner of the last round, is on row 2 with Darren Teal. Daniel Healy, Jay Elliott, Pete O'Connor and James Small is your top 8. And it's on. Who's going to get that hole shot into the hook? It's Blake ahead of Brown. Brown trying to hold out Joe Holmes. Holmes, heavy contact, and it looks as though Brown's grabbed the lead. Oh, there's people on the grass. I saw Darren Teal going down the outside. Everybody's made it through the corner. Will it be allowed to run? It was a bit messy out of the hook. We'll have to wait and see down the Lancaster curve. We've got limited viewing here. Who's leading? Is that Brown or Blake? It's Blake. Ian Blake leads from Steve Brown and Joe Holmes. And you've got to say these are the top 3 in the championship. Not necessarily in the right order at the minute. Former champion Ian Blake, current champion Steve Brown, heavyweight champion Joe Holmes, Jay Elliott, James Small, Darren Teal, Dan Healy, Brandon Williams coming through in, what's that, 10th place? 8th place ahead of Pete O'Connor, Jack Harding. And the field has now settled down, and we're possibly in for a treat here, if we can see it all. With Blake, Brown and Joe Holmes looking like the early championship contenders in the season as we came in to today, round number 4 of an 11-round championship, or is it 12? I forget now. I think we've got an extra round at Bayford Meadows. So on to the back straight, it's Blake, and he's got a gap. It was 0.4 of a second on the last lap. It's probably about that now, but it's now Joe Holmes in second place ahead of Steve Brown. Teal launches one down the inside of James Small. This might be one of those finals where you don't know where to point the camera because something's happening. Dan Healy and Darren Teal rubbing side pods into the hook. And Small trying to get a run on Teal, along with Brandon Williams down into Surtees, behind the motorhome, behind the van, through Surtees, which is a long left, into a long right behind the motorhome. That is Matt Werters, and then a long curve of the Lancaster curve into a fast right at Chandler's, onto the back straight, and then into a tight, narrow, complex, the Dell, right, left, then a long right, and then into the S's. It was 0.5, I think, on the last lap. It's 0.7 of a second this time. Blake leads Holmes, and Brown is under pressure from Jay Elliott. The gap was 0.69 on the last lap. What is it this time? It's 0.9 of a second. Ian Blake is stretching clear of Joe Holmes. Jay Elliott has grabbed third place in the hook ahead of Steve Brown. Fortunately, the stream is hanging together. Onto the back straight, into the hook they come. Into the Dell they come. And it's Blake, 0.9 of a second at the line on the last lap. It's about the same this time. Holmes, Elliott, and Brown is hanging on. Teal in 5th, ahead of Healy, Small, Williams, Jack Harding, Pete O'Connor coming through, ahead of James Hattersley in 11th, Tom Dix in 12th, Ed Bars, David Longman, Stephen Docker, Parmvina Jar had a poor day today, Daniel Truman, Ray Norris has been quiet. And they disappear into the car park. And we look for our race leaders re-emerging. Good crowd of friends, family. And of course we've got lights and heavies coming up this afternoon. We'll be back on air probably in about an hour. But it's Ian Blake clear of Joe Holmes, Jay Elliott, and Elliott has dropped now, Steve Brown. That looks like your podium to me. Jack Harding from a long way back on Brandon Williams, nearly took out James Small, and that's given Pete O'Connor a run as they rub side pods down to the hook. Williams tips in, holds O'Connor out to the outside, it nips up on the exit, and O'Connor's had to step back into line, figuratively. not just metaphorically speaking. Our stream's still running, thank God. So we are at half distance. Ian Blake's lead is 1.2 seconds ahead of Joe Holmes, Jay Elliott, Steve Brown, Darren Teal, Daniel Healy, and Jay Elliott is running down Joe Holmes slowly. The gap the last time was 0.6 of a second. It's not that now. It's 0.4 of a second. He's taken 2/10 out of Joe Holmes. Indeed, he's on his bumper coming out of the hook this time. But I think he may have made a mess of the exit, so he won't be able to strike at Surtees. He'll be looking to close in to have a run down at Raymond's, I would have thought. Yeah, Holmes still in second. 1.5 seconds down on Ian Blake. It looks as though Ian Blake's heading for his first win of the season. Whoops. And Holmes has tidied up his driving and has managed to hold Jay Elliott at a couple of kart lengths. Took a look over his shoulder, allows him to take the racing line. Battle on here. Small and O'Connor, joined by Williams, and that's going to work out for Brandon Williams this time. So a change in the midfield. Williams moves up to 9th place. Demotes O'Connor to 10th. The gap was 1.6 seconds. Ian Blake's pulling clear at a 10th of a second a lap. Holmes still conscious of Jay Elliott, who's not quite close enough to pull the trigger. Brown is settling for 4th and taking the points. Darren Teal, Jack Harding, Daniel Healy, James Small under pressure once again from Brandon Williams and Pete O'Connor. And I'm sure we saw something like this the last lap. There's a yellow flag out for a tyre barrier repair, I think. As they race down into Surtees, racing recommences. But our race leader's already down in Chandler's. We're 2 minutes 30 from the finish. Probably about 4 laps, I would have thought. It looks as though Joe Holmes is managing this gap to Jay Elliott, just keeping him out of range. Brown could be caught by the finish by Darren Teal. He's in striking distance. This is the battle once again behind James Small for 8th place. And Tom Dix could make this a 4-way dice before the finish. O'Connor looking to get good drive out of the hook to strike in the left-hander that is Surtees, and the double apex right-hander of Matt Werters that takes him down onto the Lancaster curve for a fast run through Chandler's, onto the back straight and down to the Dell. And Darren Teal is getting into the slipstream of Steve Brown. We might have a change for position before the finish. It's getting very close for 4th place, and Jack Harding's hoping that battle commences soon. I can tell you that Pete O'Connor and Brandon Williams are right at it again. Actually, it's O'Connor and James Small now. Brandon Williams is holding off Tom Dix. 1 minute from the finish of normal time. And I can tell you that race leader Ian Blake's lead is 1.9 seconds. It's been a comfortable run to the win after that initial scrap at the start, which pretty much sorted it all out in the hook. Jay Elliott just can't quite get on terms with Joe Holmes, but that's your top 3. The battle is on for 4th place now. Darren Teal trying to close in and pass Steve Brown. O'Connor's got past Small, who's now having to hold off Brandon Williams, and Tom Dix is going to get a run on Brandon. Will he be able to go through into the hook? He's tipped in and gone through. We're on the last lap. Where is our race leader? I suspect he is just coming through Chandler's now. There he is. It's going to be a first win of the season for former sprint champion Ian Blake. Will we see him showboat? Of course we will. Joe Holmes will be second. Jay Elliott will be third. Who will be fourth? Brown goes in narrow. It's a sprint to the line with Darren Teal, who's got drive. Darren Teal's going to nick it. Fourth place from Steve Brown. Oh, not sure what happened there with Dan Healy. So I was looking at live timing. Jack Harding was 6th, Dan Healy 7th, Pete O'Connor, James Small, Tom Dix was your top 10.